for 4 final. So hopefully I will be covering 2 modules for today para makapag-exam tayo on time and wala tayong extension on discussions or on July. So let me go ahead and get the PowerPoint.
For module number one, aerodrome operation, we have six subtopics today: aerodrome operational services, equipment and installation, rescue and firefighting, aerodrome vehicle operation, surface movement guidance and control system, sighting of equipment and installation on a operational area, and of course, fencing. Moving forward to start off our slide number 3 for our first subtopic for module number 1 is aerodrome emergency planning. So it is defined or it is categorized on the aerodrome emergency plan, and of course, together with that plan is a aerodrome emergency plan document. Aerodrome emergency planning is the process of preparing an aerodrome to cope up with an emergency occurring at the aerodrome or its vicinity. Of course, hindi naman natin mape-predict yung emergency from time to time. There are emergencies we can predict, such as weather. Of course, we could see those scenarios coming. However, may mga emergency naman na sudden. So we have to have a plan ready, a document plan ready when this scenario or situation happen. The primary objective of aerodrome emergency planning is, of course, to minimize the effect of that specific emergency, particularly in respect of saving lives and maintaining aircraft operation. It is also be or should be established at the aerodrome with the aircraft operation and other activities conducted on the aerodrome. It is also provided with the coordination of the action to be taken in an emergency occurring on the aerodrome or in its vicinity. So by the means or pag sinabing coordination, upon that certain emergency, so papasok na dito yung mga organization inside or on the aerodrome and organization off or outside the aerodrome. So ano nga ba yung mga on the aerodrome? So coordination, so dapat yung emergency planning natin is coordinated with the air traffic control, the on-site rescue and firefighting services, the administration itself, the available medical and ambulance services, all the aircraft operators who are in that aerodrome, your local airport security, and local airport police. And with the organization naman outside or off the aerodrome, this includes yung um, police department natin, health authorities, mga nearest hospital, nearest public services. Of course, coordinated din dapat tayo with the nearest military, coast guard, and fire department. So those are the organization outside naman the aerodrome. Ang ating namang aerodrome emergency plan document. So dapat ready din yan. We have specific information that should be contained on that plan document. So ano-ano to? We have five. So type ng emergency kung saan nakaplano tong document na to. So marami tayong mga emergency. We'll be discussing it later. That's number one. Number two, sino yung mga agencies involved during this plan. So yan papasok kung diniscuss nating organization on and off the aerodrome. Number three, responsibilities and role of each agency for each type of emergency. Number four, dyan papasok yung information on names and telephones numbers of certain people and offices needed in that specific emergency. And lastly, number five, a grid map of the aerodrome and its immediate vicinity. So lastly, yung five, importante din to. Especially, dapat meron tayong ready na evacuation plan on certain type of emergency and situation. To recap again, the five information: type of emergency, where the document is planned for, agencies involved in the plan, responsibility and roles of each agency for each type of emergency, information on names and telephone numbers of offices or people, and lastly, the grid map of the aerodrome and its immediate vicinity. So, what are this aircraft emergency? Now we are being ready for. So ito yung mga examples. We've got the common examples here. Unang-una, aircraft emergency. So ito yung familiar tayo, yung mga Mayday flight. This includes fire on board, aircraft component failure, shortage of fuel, um, problems with flight crew, weather problems, pilot incapacitation, and any aircraft damage. So example, collision, bird strike, or due to extreme weather. Sabotage, ito naman yung, actually sabotage is almost the same of unlawfully seized aircraft. However, sabotage from the word itself, yung deliberately destroy or pag-damage ng equipment or ng isang aircraft component. And compared to the unlawful seize of the aircraft, ito naman yung mga terrorist attack under this one. So, attack on the crew or on the passenger. Another type of emergency are dangerous goods. So, meron tayong tinatawag na dangerous goods on aircraft transport. So it is defined as items that may endanger the safety of the aircraft, or persons or passengers on board. So ito yung mga hazardous cargoes or dangerous cargoes and any restricted item. Building fire, so self-explanatory, natural disaster, and lastly, public health emergency. So very timely. So ito ang isa sa mga present problem natin today in the aviation industry. Moving into our next slide. So one example nga ng emergency that we encountered in the industry today is, of course, yung COVID-19. So it is probably will mark down the aviation industry as, very nag-take in or nag okay, sorry for the noise, may dumang um, ambulance. So pinakamalaking impact lately, or I think within, since the 9/11, ang COVID-19 on the aviation industry. It affects our industry by, lowering yung annual passengers natin, financial impact, mababang revenue, high variance ng flight schedule. So paiba-iba kasi hindi natin ma-predict. Magla-lockdown tayo, kakaroon ulit tayo ng opening ng border, lockdown again. High load factors, magastos tayo in terms of um, cleaning, COVID-19 testing, and marami pang iba. So COVID-19 is one of a perfect example of aerodrome emergency. Moving into our next slide, I have mentioned kanina yung dangerous goods. So as part of an emergency we encountered in the aerodrome. And under, I think this is ICAO, we classify dangerous goods into numbers. So we got class 1 to class 9. I don't I will not discuss this na, self-explanatory naman on the classification. So we got class 1 for explosive. So under din dito yung mga ammunition, fireworks, flares, and any explosive device. Two, we got gases, flammable gases, and any type of gas na harmful or dangerous on the aircraft operation. We have flammable liquids like gasoline, even paint thinners, classified siya as dangerous goods once you travel it on the aircraft. Class 4, we got flammable solids. Example nito are powdered metals and charcoals. Class 5, we got oxides and peroxides. So ito yung mga oxidizing material, chlorates and nitrates. Under dito yan. Class 6, we got infectious substance. So these are um, medical substance that are from the word itself, infectious, and kailangan natin ng on our country and a lot of country. Before, alam ko, siniship pa nga yung other country. Pag-detect natin ng virus, hindi tayo ready during the pandemic. Yung testing itself, hindi available on our country. If you'll, recap and research, siniship pa natin yung testing on other country. So yun ang isang example ng infectious substance. Under din doon yung toxic substance. Class 7, radioactive. Class 8, we got corrosive materials. Example nito, mga battery fluid, corrosive yan. Class 9, others. So, andito yung mga ibang hazardous substance na wala from class 1 to class 8. Example niyan yung mga magnetized materials. Under yan ng class 9. Since it could affect the aircraft and yung mga system natin on the aircraft. Kaya it is classified as dangerous goods. Next slide, we got emergency operation center. So it's a part of the aerodrome facility that is responsible for the overall coordination and general direction of the response to an emergency. So emergency operation center and command post, these are the general term. Per country, may mga iba pa yung tawag. Per airport, nagkakaiba pa yung tawag. On our end, we got the AICCC. It is called the Airport Command and Control Center. Yun ang ating nagsisilbing emergency operation center. Again, that is AICCC, Airport Command and Control Center. Command post, it's mandated to have a facility capable of moving or being moved rapidly to the site of an emergency. Communication system, linking the command post and the emergency operation center with each other, with or together with the participating agencies. Another one in this slide, we got aerodrome emergency exercise. So we tackle on the first and second slide na dapat nga we have this emergency planning. We got the plan set out. We got documents to support this. Okay, same as, on our school, nung sa school nyo, during your high school days, meron din tayong mga exercise for us to be or end up employees to be familiarized with this emergency plan. So we have these exercises and we are required on or the aerodrome is required to conduct these exercises in a full scale, in a partial scale, and in a modular test or per specific emergencies. The full scale are required to be conducted in a interval not exceeding 2 years. The partial exercise naman is required to be conducted in or per year interval. And the modular test naman, so these are concentrated efforts and required naman to be done not exceeding 3 years. So again, we got per 2 years, per year, and an interval not exceeding 3 years for the modular test. Next topic, we got the rescue and firefighting. So as I have mentioned a while ago, meron nga tayong agencies on the aerodrome and off the aerodrome. And with the rescue and firefighting, meron tayong agency on the aerodrome for the rescue and firefighting. Its primary objective is, of course, to save lives in the event of any aircraft accident or incident occurring on the aerodrome and within the vicinity of the aerodrome. The most important factors are uh, most important factor, sorry, bearing on effective rescue in a aircraft accidents are training received, effectiveness of the equipment, and speed. So this is where the personnel, dito na papasok yung combine ng training ng personnel and the equipment they have on that designated emergency. So mapuput into test ang ating rescue and firefighting. Rescue and firefighting service is provided also to, of course, create and maintain or initiate the rescue of the occupants to make their escape on any accident. So, nandito rin sila, of course, to assist um, in any aircraft emergency. So, kahit simple emergency lang, simple evacuation on the aircraft, the rescue and firefighting services are there to assist. Got two notes here. So, note one, with the firefighting equipment services. Special firefighting equipment need not to be provided for water areas. This does not prevent the provision of such equipment if it would be of practical use, such as when the areas concerned include reefs or islands. Note number two, the objective is to plan and deploy the necessary life saving flotation equipment as possible in a number to commensurate with the largest airplane normally used in the aerodrome. So sinasabi lang dito, note 1, that dapat yung ating rescue and firefighting nakadesign kung saan sila mag-ooperate. So depending on the environment of the airport. Note 2 naman po, sinasabi dito na ang capability ng rescue and firefighting services, it should be on the maximum. So ibig sabihin, kung ano yung pinaka-largest airplane or largest aircraft operated on the airport, yun ang dapat ang kaya nilang um, i-provide or i-service. Third is extinguishing agent. So we categorize this in two category. We got the principal and the complementary. The principal is the foam meeting the minimum required or performance under the law or the local authority, and the backup one, the complementary, is the dry chemical powder. So may mga laws tayo dyan in detail, and it's categorized under principal and complementary. Next slide. So the first one on the slide is yung response time. So dapat yung ating rescue and firefighting services, any emergency at any point on the operational runway, dapat may response time sila not exceeding 2 minutes. For any part of the runway naman, it should be within 3 minutes, and the nearest responding vehicles should arrive less than 4 minutes from the initial call. So that is the required response time of our rescue and firefighting services. Next one is the emergency access road. So particularly, we should provide a ready access on the approach areas up to 1,000 meters from the threshold and at least or within the aerodrome boundary. Next is fire station. The Aerodrome Firefighting and Rescue Services. Ngayon, it's under the law, in case the time kanina na required, kailangan pa mag-provide. So, this is applicable doon sa mga major international airport. Kailangan pa natin mag-provide ng satellite fire station inside the airport boundary. In case na sobrang lawak niya at sobrang laki, hindi natin ma-achieve yung response time available, we will have to provide satellite fire station. Next is communication and alerting system. So dapat we have a direct line linking those fire station or satellite fire station to the control tower. Usually, local radio to. So dapat, kasi ang any emergency or aircraft emergency forwarded yan or under the ATC or the control tower. So dapat si control tower may direct line or communication system to any fire or satellite fire station within the airport boundary. Into the next slide, I just have here an example of a emergency access road. In case din to for major emergencies, for example, we got or we need outside services, kunyari firefighting, so hindi na kaya nung ating on-site firefighting services, we need the firefighting services of the aerodrome or the rescue and firefighting services of the city. So meron tayong mga emergency access road for them. So one in the slide is an example. Moving forward, so this is under ICAO Document 9137, Airport Services Manual under Rescue and Firefighting. And ito po yung nire-require nilang number of rescue and firefighting vehicles per aerodrome depending on their category. And the category depends on the length and the width of the aircraft or the biggest aircraft they are servicing. So self-explanatory naman. So ito yung overall length, ito yung width ng fuselage, and dito sila makakategorize. So 1 to 10, and those category, nandyan ang maximum, sorry, minimum. Again, under the airport category or airdrome category, ito yung minimum rescue and firefighting vehicles na meron dapat per category. Next slide, we are into slide 11. All rescue and firefighting personnel should be properly trained to perform their duties in a efficient manner and should participate in any live drills with the type of aircraft and type of rescue and firefighting equipment in use at the airdrome. So very self-explanatory naman. Of course, dapat yung ating firefighters and of course rescue personnel dapat train sila on their duty or on their job, and they are trained or specialized sa aircraft operation or emergencies on the aircraft operation. Second, under din ng services provided ng rescue and firefighting, removal of the area should be automated, aircraft debugging, aircraft recovery, and aircraft salvage. So yun, tatlong category with the aircraft removal. So aircraft debugging, dito papasok yung removal ng aircraft on the runway or taxiway during an excursion where the aircraft has become back down and usually wala namang mga damage, little or no damage naman usually on this kind of incident. So dito yung pag nag-land si aircraft, either nag-overshoot siya or nag-misalign with the runway. Papasok yon on aircraft debugging. Second is yung aircraft recovery. So ito naman, removal process naman to when the aircraft has problem on its operating use or on its power. So pag nagka-problema tayo on the engine or nagka-problema with the operation of the aircraft or the system. So pwede mag-request ng aircraft recovery under ng aircraft removal. So okay naman yung aircraft, nasa taxiway siya, but then again, hindi niya na kaya mag-taxi on its own. And lastly is yung aircraft salvage. So ito, dito napapasok yung mga accident or incident involving the aircraft having substantial damage. So under na yon ng aircraft salvage. Again, tatlo categories ng aircraft removal. We got aircraft debugging, aircraft recovery, and aircraft salvage. Next on the topic or on our module is wildlife strike hazard reduction. So with aircraft operation, present din dito yung mga wildlife. So especially with birds, medyo tawag dito, attracted din sila on the space provided ng ating airdrome. So dapat meron tayong mga plans and hazard reduction in case na serious threat na yung wildlife under the aircraft operation. Next is apron management service. So sila yung nagmamanage ng volume ng traffic and operating condition under the or within the aerodrome. Papasok din dito yung ground servicing of the aircraft. Sorry, with the airborne management service, usually kasi with the volume of traffic, hinahati nila yan, depende din sa laki ng airport. So, minsan on the smaller airport, handle lahat ng ATC. Pag mas malaki na ang airport, nade-divide na yan. So, meron ng ground, meron ng sa air. So, meron tayong ATC na nag-handle on the volume on the ground and on the air. Tapos pag mas lumaki pa ang ating airport, inahati na naman yan. So yung nag-handle na ATC on the aircraft on the air, nahahati na yan. Meron na tayong approach, meron din ng mga papalabas, and meron yung hinahandle nila for takeoff and landing. So ganun yan. Pwede rin yung ground, hatiin nila pag sobrang dami ng volume, east and west, magkaibang personnel and team ang nag-handle ng volume of traffic. On the ground servicing of the aircraft, dito papasok yung mga services that connects our aircraft operation on the ground. So this includes yung mga marshalling, baggage handling, aircraft towing, yung process ng refueling natin, toilet and water servicing, dito yan. Aircraft cleaning, especially now, medyo mataas ang interval ng aircraft cleaning natin due to the pandemic. Papasok dito ang catering, pushback, and also in some countries yung de-icing. But in our state, wala naman tayong de-icing services here for our country. So doon papasok, or itong mga items na to papasok on the ground servicing of the aircraft.
Next slide, we got aerodrome vehicle operation. So aware naman kayo na we have four wheels operating on the aerodrome or on the airport. It's under the airline, the operators, or under the authority or the local authority. There are certain requirements seen on this slide for a vehicle to operate on the aerodrome area. On a maneuvering area, only as authorized by the aerodrome control tower. On the apron, sorry, only as authorized by the designated authority. So it's under the aerodrome control tower on the maneuvering area, and on any other area, it would be under the designated authority. It is required, of course, to the vehicle or the four wheels to obey on any instruction provided by the authority or the control towers. And also, they are required to follow instruction signs and lights on the aerodrome operation. Required din sila to carry a radio-equipped vehicle with a two-way radio communication. Pag sinabi nating two-way, so pwede silang mag-listen on the radio and makapag-send on their equipment. So two-way process. They could listen and they could provide information. May mga radio po kasi na for receiving purposes lang. So they are required na may receiving and may sending. They are also required to have a backup system for communication in case the radio fail. One example is using a light gun. So napag-aralan na natin yung light gun. So may mga meaning yan depending on the color of the lights and the interval of the lights. And it is required also for vehicles to carry one of those. Into the next slide, we got surface movement guidance and control system or SMGCS. So SMGCS, hindi ito available sa lahat ng airport. Usually available lang ito sa mga international or major airports in the city or in a specific country.
So SMGCS is a modular system consisting of different functionalities to support the safe and orderly movement of aircraft and vehicles on the aerodrome. So nagkakaroon tayo ng or nag-install na ng SMGCS system in case nga pag dumadami yung volume ng traffic on the specific airport, dumadami yung traffic density and tumataas yung complexity ng ating aerodrome. So papasok tayo ng SMGCS. On the next slide, we'll take a look on the SMGCS. I think I have an example picture of this para magkaroon tayo ng better understanding with this system. So here on slide 14, we got an example of a SMGCS system on the screen. So it is under the control of the local authority or under the control tower. As you could see here on the presentation, let me get my laser pointer. We got lights presentation here. Yung mga lights, markings and sign is controllable by the authority or the control tower. So no need na um, actually need pa rin pala, sorry, at certain conditions to provide uh, authority with the tower, but the SMGCS provides support on the traffic density. So parang second system siya. So kung hinold ka on that runway, kunyari, hinold ka before entering the runway, may support system that will provide you a stop bar. For example, here. So kung may problema with the radio communication, mabilis or static due to the traffic density, meron tayong system na sasalo together with that. So ayan, example. Ayan, mga example ng lights. It's controlled by the control tower under also with the or with their surveillance broadcast system. Pumapasok din dito sa SMGCS pag may mga problema tayo with the visibility conditions. So demanding yung ating operation. So may mga um, or this SMGCS provides supports or support with the operation of the aircraft. Kasi as a flight crew, not only nagre-rely ka on the um, command by the control tower. So kahit may command ka na, you still have to look for your own. So kailangan mo rin i-check yung sarili mo. Kunyari, nag-cleared ka for to enter this runway. So kunyari, inalis na yung stop bar mo, cleared ka na to enter the runway, nag-reply ka, or sumagot ka na kay tower, so cleared ka na entering the runway, you still have to look for yourself. Check ka dito kung may approach, check ka if may aircraft pa sa runway. So ngayon, pag may mga problema tayo sa visibility due to weather, especially on some countries may mga fog due to also low temperature, the lights and signs of the SMGCS serve as a support system. So very important to on low visibility operation and high traffic density and complex aerodrome. Again, tatlo lang yan, papasok si SMGCS, low visibility or various visibility condition, complex aerodrome, and high traffic volume or density. Next slide, we got sighting of equipment and installation on operational areas. So with this, ito yung mga general requirement. If you will be providing any equipments on certain areas on the aerodrome. So ang pinaka-restricted is yung runway of course itself, the runway strip, runway and safety area, RESA, taxiway strip, and within the clearway. The only time na pwede tayong mag-install ng equipment is in case na this will provide or will be under the air navigation or for aircraft safety purposes. Otherwise, no equipment or installation should be provided on these areas. So we got here equipments or installation required must be located. So ito yung mga distances from the runway strip depending sa code number ng ating aerodrome. So na-discuss na natin to. Self-explanatory naman, we got the distance from the center line and the code number. We also have a table here on the next slide. Hold on. There we go. We have here detailed numbers provided on what area and what code number. So ayan, self-explanatory naman yung table. We got the separation and the distances in case we will be installing equipments within those restricted areas. Next, we have fencing or barriers. Of course, we should provide barriers or fencing on our aerodrome. Number one, to prevent any sabotage or unlawful seize of our aircraft or any equipments of the aircraft operation. It will also serve as a protection for any wildlife, such as large animals that are enough to be a hazard to the aircraft. The fence or other suitable barrier should be provided on an aerodrome to deter any access of unauthorized persons. So ito na yung sinabi ko. Since nga ang aerodrome is a controlled area and any unauthorized enter subject yan by the law. And lastly, we got here autonomous runway incursion warning system. So it's a system which provide autonomous detection of a potential incursion or the occupancy of an active runway and direct warning to the flight crew or any vehicle or aircraft operator. So ito namang ARIWS. So same siya, almost the same siya ng um, operation ng SMGCS. However, yung SMGCS, yung mga control bars lights niya, controlled siya ng control tower. However, ito namang ARIWS, ang meron lang siya is control bar, control stop bar, yung red light that separates the runway or the active runway from the taxiway. And with the ARIWS, automatic to, autonomous siya. Automatic siya and independent. So, automatic magre-red light yung stop bar. So, dalawa lang yan. If meron siyang na-detect, aircraft arriving on a final approach. So, naka-final approach na si aircraft to the runway, automatic madedetect niya yon. Siya na mismo ang mag-on or this system, siya na mag-on nung mga control stop bar on that specific or active runway. Another circumstances naman, if na-detect niya na meron ng aircraft on the threshold ready for takeoff or may active aircraft on the threshold, automatic din siyang mag-on ng control stop bar or ng red light on all the entrance and exit of the runway. So, automatic to. And connected siya with fencing, of course, in case may mga unauthorized person tayo or vehicles and also an large animal na hazardous to the aircraft nakapasok on the fence, pumasok sa runway and hindi aware or hindi nakita ng ating control tower, meron tayong autonomous system na makakadetect nito and will automatically put a red light on any other aircraft taking off or on the final approach. So that is ARIWS. Next slide. So we got here an example fencing. of an airport. Again, the airport is not a public area. So, once you are on the fence, on the airport boundary, pag pumasok ka dyan unauthorized, it will be subjected to the law.
Next, we got module number two. We'll be discussing a few aerodrome facilities or the most important aerodrome facilities we have on an airport. Moving into our next slide, slide 20, we got here the coverage of module number two. As I have said a while ago, we'll be focusing dun sa mga pinaka-importanteng facilities, which is the airways facilities. So we'll be starting on the clearances, general requirements, and moving into the different kind of facilities we will be encountering on an airport para maging familiar tayo with that. Slide 21. So we got standards for siting and clearance areas for airways facilities on airports. So ano nga ba yung airways facilities? So yung airways facilities, ito yung mga facilities that permits the safe navigation of our aircraft and its operation within the airspace and the airport. Some examples are, hold on, let me get my um, laser pointer. So we got navigation aids. So navigation aids, ito yung mga ILS, DME, VOR, and DB. If narinig nyo na siya minsan. So later, at the end of this discussion, we'll be looking into that. Communication facilities. Of course, yung point-to-point communication system ng ating um, tower and yung iba-ibang department um, on the airport operation. Third is meteorological facilities. So, minsan sa mga malalaking airport, may sarili silang mga weather instrument para magkaroon sila ng exact detail or data ng current weather condition on the airport. So meron kasi tayong when you go into the operation, meron tayong weather na kinukuha from the Weather Bureau of the country and meron tayo nung exact weather condition from the airport na binibigay nila. And lastly, of course, kasama din dito is yung ating ATC facilities. So we could see here the airways facilities, safe, efficient operation of the aircraft. So it's either, or these airways facilities can be located at the perimeter of the aerodrome and also outside the aerodrome. Yung ating mga facilities na to, these are from several communication navigation companies, um, third party companies. So yung kanilang exact location or position should be precise depending dun kung paano i-operate yung certain equipment from that company. So yung mga standard na sukat na to, hindi natin to makikita as general uh, na sukat. So it depends, or yung mga facilities equipments na to, yung sukat niya, yung precise location niya, depending yan doon sa manufacturer instruction. So it depends doon sa manufacturer. But in the end, as you could see here, it's still the responsibility of the aerodrome to preserve the sites and clearances areas for or planned doon sa mga facilities. So it's from the manufacturer ng equipment, yung sukat, and its responsibility by the aerodrome to maintain that. Depende na lang kung this is government or private owned. Next, general citing requirements. So, self-explanatory naman to pag binasa natin. So, you could review this on your own. Sabi ko nga, sensitive yung mga instruments na to with regards to their location and operation. And of course, importante yon kasi this help our aircraft navigate and operate within the airport or within the airspace. So you could see here that non-compliance or infringement by those aids could provide hindi man niya ma-stop or masira. However, yung functions niya or yung pagka-precise ng instrument or data na binibigay natin sa aircraft is maapektuhan. As I mentioned nga, it's the Aerodrome responsibility to maintain this clearances and to maintain or preserve yung operation ng mga airways facilities or equipment na to. One example here, if you look back on our previous topic dun sa mga signs na nakikita natin on the airport, the white and red, I think that's mandatory if I'm correct. Meron dun na color red na may nakasulat or white and red na ILS mandatory sign. And this is one example. So may mga parts sa airport na mga airways facilities na kailangan mo ng clearance with the ATC before you cross on that area. Kasi nga, these are sensitive. Madedegrade yung function nila when hindi or natakpan or na-block yung kanilang operation which will affect yung landing or approach aircraft. So that is one example. You could look back into our previous PowerPoint. That's the ILS mandatory sign. Okay, next slide. We got slide 23, navigation aid facility. So dito tayo magpo-focus for this module sa mga navigation aid facility. So itabi na natin yung tatlong nabanggit ko kaninang airways facility. So we'll be focusing on navigation aids. Navigation aid is defined as the piece of equipment, of course, assisting the safe and efficient landing of our aircraft to their desired landing zone or on the airport. So nabanggit ko nga ang mga example nito kanina is ILS, Instrument Landing System, DME, Distance Measuring Equipment, NDB, VOR. So these are some of the example and it varies from airport. So may airport na may ganitong equipment, may airport na ito lang ang equipment nila, may airport na wala. May mga category din yan. Yung example, yung ILS, meron tayong Cat 1, Cat 2, Cat 3, depending doon sa technology na meron or equipment na meron yung isang airport. So we got few statements here. So yun nga sinabi ko, ang approach path, very important yan with this navigation aid facilities. Yung accuracy ng approach path, very important since yung signal from these facilities and equipment, direct yan na binabato. So, from our aircraft to the equipment, or sorry, from the equipment to the aircraft and back, and also together with the ATC. And these are real-time, on-time data to. So, importante talaga na control natin or control yung mga areas ng navigation facilities. Sinabi rin dito, in case there were proposed or planned development, kailangan natin i-consult yung provider. So, yun sinasabi ko kanina, yung manufacturer ng equipment. The Aerodrome has the responsibility to maintain these facilities. However, yung mga sukat, yung location, always consult the manufacturer of or provider of the equipment. Next slide, we got the VOR facility. VOR stands for Very High Frequency Omnidirectional Range. It's a type of a short-range radio navigation system for aircraft. So it's enabling the aircraft to receive unit to determine its position and to stay the aircraft on course using this radio beacons
na pinoprovide ng VOR facility. Later, I'll explain kung paano siya nag-work on the next slide. So let's have, we have some data here, self-explanatory naman. So for the VOR facility, aerodrome, roadways, taxiway, public roads should not be closer than 300-meter radius. So restricted area ang VOR facility. So all unauthorized personnel and vehicle must be kept clear doon sa 300-meter radius. Site maintenance, kailangan it should be grass and scrub within 150 meters of the site, so almost half. Services, all cables are to be placed underground within the 300-meter radius ng VOR facility. So malinis dapat to for the signal to be effective and precise. Clearance zone, no structure should be permitted within the 150-meter office station unless otherwise approved by the Director General or the local authority of the country. No structure shall subtend a vertical angle greater than 1.2 degrees above the horizontal as measured from the antenna rate. Vertical angle, marunong na tayo kumuha nito. Ito yung ginamit natin on how or kung paano natin sinusukat yung mga critical obstacle within the airport airspace on our previous topic. So no single trees of moderate size up to 9 meter in height may be tolerated beyond the 150 meter, but no group of trees should be subtend to a vertical more than 2 degrees or to be located within the 300-meter of the station. So these are the general requirement na nire-require ng isang VOR facility. So paano nga pa nag-work ang isang VOR facility? So let's move on to the next slide. So on our slide, we have here an example of a VOR facility. As you could see here, yan, kept clean talaga yung ating boundary ng facilities. Nasusunod yung mga requirements. Ito yung pinaka-facility. The VOR works by sending radio frequency. So, ayan, bilog siya. So, pwede itong nasa airport. So, may mga airport na may VOR facility. And pwede rin to minsan, especially on first world country, may mga VOR facility sila kahit hindi or wala sa airport. So, dun sa mga common areas where airplanes or aircraft tracks, naglalagay sila ng VOR facility. So, it's 360 degrees structure. So, yan, 360 yan. And this work together with the CDI. So, yun yung course deviation indicator na makikita nyo sa mga aircraft and especially sa mga small aircraft. So, dito nagsisimula yung or mag-training ng flying. So, it's a instrument used to navigate or determine the aircraft lateral position in relation to the course from the radio navigation beacon or doon sa VOR facility. So, for example, sinet mo yung sarili mo. Kunyari, ang VOR facility na to ay nasa airport. So, papunta ka doon sa airport na yun. So, isa-set mo yung degrees mo going to that VOR na example nga, located on the airport. So, kunyari, sinet mo 180 going to the VOR. So, using the CDI, mamaintain mo ngayon si aircraft mo on that 180 line na sinesend out na radio signal ng VOR. And you could maintain your aircraft on track. So, mamaintain mo. For example, we have a line. Ayan, ganyan. So, kunyari, ito yung sinet out mo. Just for example, so that is the 180. So, using the course deviation indicator ng aircraft, you could maintain yourself going doon sa facility na yon, sa area na yon, or sa airport na yon. So, pag nag-skid ka, malalaman mo yon, skid ka to the right, malalaman mo sa CDI, you could go back on track.
skid ka, go back on track. So you could maintain on track going to that facility or to that airport. And hindi lang siya going to. Minsan nagagamit din siya going from or kung palabas ka. So palabas ka ng airport, set ka ng iyong VOR. Example, dito ka lalabas, set mo yung radio signal mo on the VOR. Let's say 90. So lalabas ka naman from there, track ka. Diyan, makikita mo yan together with the CDI receiving those signal. Ngayon, the common problem with the VOR, as you could see, medyo matrabaho yung requirements na kailangan niya. So, the requirements itself, the facility, the area, yung installation, napaka matrabaho. Ngayon, at this moment in time, ang nangyayari is na-phase out na unti-unti ang VOR facilities. Meron pa rin mga VOR, but slowly na-phase out siya, na-obsolete. So, ang pumapalit dito is yung ating GPS. So, familiar na kayo with GPS. So, with the aircraft operation, yun na ang pumapalit, yung GPS. Wala ka nang kailangang facilities. The GPS satellites are on the space. You could receive it almost everywhere and anywhere around the globe. Kaya yun ang nagiging kapalit ng ating VOR. Next is slide 26, DME facilities. So, distance measuring equipment. So, kung napansin nyo kanina on the VOR, lateral guidance lang siya. So, yung course mo lang yung nag-guide going to or from that specific location. Pero wala kang distance kung gaano ka nga ba kalayo pa on the facility or on the airport. So, in partner, kadalasan naka-partner ang DME facilities or distance measuring equipment kay VOR. So, it's the DME is a combination, of course, ng ground, ng facility, and ng airborne equipment. So, yung receiver natin sa aircraft to give a continuous slant range distance from the station readout by measuring the time lapse of the signal transmitted by the aircraft to the station and which is or responded back. And same with the VOR, meron tayong mga requirements for a DME facility. So there we go, vehicle movement, restricted area, site maintenance within 300 meters also, almost the same with the VOR. LV, that stands for line voltage. So we got clearance zone within 600-meter radius. So madalas partner tong DME kay VOR. However, same with the VOR, nagiging obsolete na rin or medyo na-phase out na si DME. So marami ng mga technological advances na nagiging kapalit. I'll move on to the next slide to provide you more details. So slide 27. So here on the left-hand side, we have here an example of the satellite or the facility, of ATME. And ganito siya nag-work. Sending out the signal, kino-compute niya yung kung gaano katagal na receive and na transmit yung signal na yon. However, the problem with the DME is hindi siya exact. Hindi siya exact in a way na yung nako-compute, yung pagbato ng signal kasi, that is the slant range distance. So, yung slant range yung kino-compute ng system. Pagbato here and pag-receive here. Ngayon, hindi naman natin magagamit yun in exact. So, hindi siya effective. Though, magagamit natin siya, however, hindi siya exact kasi ang need natin na distance is this distance from your point to the ground to the actual facility or airport. Ngayon, ang binibigay niya is yung slant distance. So, kailangan mo pa rin mag-compensate doon while flying. Kaya, DME and VOR, medyo na napapalitan na siya by the GPS, or I think that stands for Global Positioning System, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, move on to the next slide. Slide 28, we got the Instrument Landing System or yung tinatawag nating ILS, if narinig na natin. So it's a precision runway approach equipment based on two radio beams which together provide pilots both vertical and horizontal guidance during an approach to land. So I'll discuss on the next slide how it works. So we got or composed of three major equipment. So we got the localizer. The localizer helps the horizontal guidance of the aircraft. We got the glide path, which helps naman with the vertical guidance. And we got marker beacons or the DME minsan, may DME yung ILS to measure naman yung actual distance to the runway or to give a glimpse of the distance to the runway. And we also have other instruments, mga monitor, controls, and other indicators. But the major component of the ILS is itong tatlo. The horizontal guidance, the vertical guidance, and the distance itself. So na-mention ko nga kanina, the ILS have mandatory instruction signs. Looking back in our previous discussion, since sensitive to, it should be protected with the following: electromagnetic interference, construction or building, any temporary or permanent structures na itatayo natin, kailangan lagi i-consult or bigyan ng halaga yung ILS system natin. So the aircraft shall not enter or remain with a critical area. So critical area yung tawag natin doon sa mga area na yon, especially when the ILS is in use. So clearance with the ATC is very important. The critical area is an area defined dimensions about the localizer and glide path where vehicles, including aircraft, will cause an acceptable disturbance to the ILS performance. The sensitive area is an area extending beyond the critical area where parking and or movement of vehicles, including aircraft, may affect the ILS performance. So the critical and the sensitive area are both restricted area yan. Both needed a clearance from the authority or with the ATC. The only difference is that yung critical area, yan yung fixed area ng isang IL system, yung mga fixed area na restricted. However, yung sensitive area, ito nagva-vary to from time to time. Pwedeng minsan open tong area na to, pwedeng minsan close siya. Depending kung in use ang ILS or kung anong category yung ginagamit with the ILS. Again, with the critical area, that is fixed area, definite boundaries. However, yung sensitive area varies from time to time. On the next slide, we got here an explanation or a visual representation of the three instruments used by the ILS. So una, let's have this, the one on the left-hand side. This is the horizontal guidance. So ito yung tinatawag na localizer. So nagsasend si ILS ng signal na nare-receive ng aircraft. So supposedly, mag-track ka sa gitna. So pag nag-track ka on the right, mafa-flashan ka ng signal na 150 Hz. Yun ang marireceive mo, which will give you an indication na kailangan mo mag-move to the left. And ganun din sa kabila, pag yung orange or yung 90 Hz ang na-receive mo, it will provide you an indication that you need to move to the right para maging inline ka doon sa horizontal guidance or maging center line ka on the runway. Ganon din po on the glide path. So ito ang glide path on the upper right. We got radio signal above and below doon sa correct glide path. So pag tumaas ka, marireceive mo yung 90 Hz, giving an indication you need to go down. Pag lower ka naman, so slightly lower, you'll receive the 150 Hz and it will indicate you need to move up. to the glide path. So yan, the horizontal and the vertical guidance. And yung isa, so na-discuss ko na yung DME. Yung isa nating ginagamit together is yung marker beacon. So with the marker beacon, makikita natin to doon sa airport information kung ano yung distance per beacon ng mga signals na to. So it varies. For example lang, let's say this is 5 nautical miles. We got 2 and 1. So for example, ganun. So it sent out a radio on the aircraft. Um, nare-receive yan ng aircraft. It will indicate on the aircraft. So may ilaw doon, yung OM, MM, and IM. So kunyari, andito ka banda, you are approaching the runway, ang nare-receive mo yung OM, so nag-indicate doon blue. Ibig sabihin, nasa outer marker ka pa. So around 5 nautical miles. Pag medyo malapit ka na, marireceive mo yung MM, color orange yan, magbe-blink. Ibig sabihin, medyo malapit ka na. And IM, so for example, nga kanina, 1 nautical mile, ibig sabihin, nasa inner marker ka na, approaching the runway. So uh, that how, or it's how the ILS system works. So it gives you horizontal, vertical, and the distance from the runway as you approach or establish your landing. On the next slide naman po, we got here yung representation nito on the cockpit. So ito po yung itong violet na diamond shape and this yellow line. Itong yellow line na to and this diamond shape. So that is the glide path and the localizer. So ito si localizer. So si aircraft mo dyan, yung aircraft mo is yung yellow line. So ito yung runway mo. So ibig sabihin, you are on the left of the runway, you need to go to the right. So this is your aircraft, yung yellow marker, hindi yung diamond. Same with the glide path, the yellow line is your aircraft and the violet diamond is your glide slope. So you need, or for this example, you need to go up into the glide slope. And with the outer marker, inner marker, marker distance, wala akong example on this slide. Next, we got slide 31, radar sensor sites. Dito papasok yung surveillance radar ng ating airport or ng aerodrome, which is the system they use to, of course, detect and display yung mga present position ng aircraft in the terminal and the airspace na nasasakop ng airport. It is managed by, of course, the ATC, and usually present to sa mga large airport with high volume of traffic. So the design requirements for this, a rectangular area, 50 meters by 40 meters, including a sufficient space for the crane to maneuver. So yung radar kasi, ano yan, gumagalaw. So kailangan not only the exact area, but a sufficient space for it to maneuver. Clearance requirement, so dito papasok yung mga may encounter na problem ng or possible problem ng radar. So apat lang yan. There's four. The first one, of course, yung blocking. So pwedeng ma-block yung signals by any construction or any object infringement doon sa area. So one is blocking, two is interference. So pwedeng magulo yung ating radar sensor site ng mga iba pang antenna present doon sa ating airport. Third is diffraction. Ito naman, nangyayari to pag yung signal is na out of track. So, may possibility na, example dito, pulse, it could possibly cause na ma-diffract yung ating signal. So, that's third diffraction. Fourth is reflection. So, the same with light, signals could be reflected. So, pwedeng mag-reflect siya sa mga ibang aircraft, causing the aircraft to disappear or to appear in multiple locations. If you have read about stealth technology, ito yung ginagamit na method ng stealth. Kaya ganun siya, medyo edgy ang shape ng mga stealth aircraft. So, for it to reflect or bounce back the signal out doon sa actual radar site or radar facility. So, magiging or mag-a-appear sila on more than one location, or possibly hindi sila ma-detect on ng radar on the screen. So we got here following requirements to be maintained, self-explanatory naman, to mitigate these factors that will affect the radar sensor site. And one thing here, could also see airport staff are cautioned against any location within the 500-meter radius ng radar. So, dangerous, of course, same with other radars, dangerous din sa health ng mga personnel and airport staff. So, um, caution, especially unauthorized entry, bawal yan with other or with our radar sensor sites. So, we got several radars. Example in the next slide. So, here we got airport surveillance radar. So, usually elevated siya para magkaroon siya ng perfect line of sight doon sa airspace ng isang airport. So, we've got few example here. Okay, last two slides na lang. Um, Communication facilities, familiar naman tayo dito. Usually, nakalinya naman ang communication facilities ng airport. Except na lang sa mga satellites, same lang, kailangan niyan ng clear line of sight. So, I think dito yun, self-explanatory with the communication facilities. And lastly, our last slide is ground earthing points. So we got few numbers here na kailangan nating maging aware of. So ano nga ba yung grounding system ng isang airport? So it helps carry the expected electrical charges from the sources away safely. Example nito is yung lightning strike. Even yung mga maliliit na electrical charges, pumapasok yan sa ground points. Kasi, especially when nagre-refuel tayo, hindi naman kailangan na malakas yung electrical charges. A few spark could light up yung fuel. So, all electrical charges na hindi kailangan, dito yan pasok. Few numbers to consider here. Resistance to earth must not exceed 10,000 ohms. Ang testing nito should be 6 months after the installation. So that's per 6 months. The ground points should be marked. So ito, marked with a 15 centimeter diameter circle in color white. So that ends our discussion for module 1 and 2 for 424. Let me close my slides and my PowerPoint, and let's go ahead with the question and answer. Okay, I do apologize. Napakaba yung ating meeting. However, natapos natin yung module 1 and 2. So we're down half of the final term. Almost 5:30. Any questions so far, guys? Section 4. Friday, wala. I'll just provide a activity na pwede nyo sagutan anytime. Okay, any questions so far? Both yan class 424 and 422. Asynchronous na tayo for Friday. So next meeting natin and last meeting will be next week, Wednesday. Sige, sige. No worries. So yes, I'll be considering that. Siguro hindi ko na siya papa-deadline this week. Thank you, Carl, for reminding me. So yun, any more question or request before I end the class? Going once, going twice. Okay. Have a good day and have a good afternoon. Thank you, guys. See you next week.
Salamat po, sir.